I know everybody's getting tired, but it's, just a little while longer and it'll be happy hour.
Not sure which one it is, but you can figure out what.
Oh, great, thanks. Yeah, I'm gonna do. Oh, I was afraid my updated slides didn't get in, but they are there. I was afraid I left Christina off of the slide. The chamber, I'm going to tell you, this dovetails right into what Sean has been talking about, only from the chamber's perspective instead of the laboratory's perspective, but we have similar perspectives a lot of time. And the two chambers that are NRPP certified in the United States are our chambers at Bowser-Moner and the chamber at Kansas State University, so they had some input to this talk also. Now I got to figure out what I'm doing here. Okay, so actually everything I'm going to say, it's just as simple. Boils down to one thing. Read the directions. I know that's a lot to ask to read the directions, but it really does save time and money if you just read the directions and follow them. So, but I'll elaborate a little. No, I've got 20 minutes, so I'll elaborate. So, for performance tests, who's ever heard of performance tests? Yeah, so for some reason, a lot of our clients, first of all, they claim they didn't know about a performance test, don't know what it is, but then they got to do one. So they call us and they say, well, what do we got to do? Well, first of all, I'm going to educate you a little bit, but I'm probably teaching you to the choir here. The purpose is to ensure that the certified tester can actually read out and report a correct measurement from the device, and number two, that the device is actually working properly. And both of them are very important. But failing a test is not intended to be a punishment to you. It's intended to rather find problems and get them fixed. And if you don't understand your device, you don't understand how to read it out, how to report a result, then let's fix that problem. That's the whole idea behind performance testing. So I'll talk a little bit about performance testing with a continuous radon monitor. The client sends a monitor in, we expose it in a chamber to a known concentration, and then send it back to the client. The client reports back to the chamber lab the measurement that was made during the time the monitor was actually in the chamber. In other words, to agree with the chamber average. And the reported measurement must be within 25% of the target value or the chamber value to pass. And that usually with monitors, that's no real big problem. But the mistake that is made too often is that the client gets the monitor back and they don't read the directions that came with it that we put on the monitor. And instead, they take the monitor, they clear it, they go make a house test, or they test in their basement or whatever, and then they report that value. And then they fill out a form that says, this is what I got, and they send it in, they fail. They want to know, why did I fail? Because you reported your measurement and not ours. So, or the other thing that happens is that they'll get the monitor back and they'll call in and they say, okay, I got it back, now what do I do? And because they didn't read any of the instructions, and so we could tell them, read it out, report what, oh, well, I already used that in a home test, and now it's too late. They got to send it back, it's got to be redone, and that wastes time and money. It wastes their time, wastes our time. And then also on top of that, they've waited till the last minute. They say, well, I got my certification ends up tomorrow. I got to have it. Well, sorry. That's the way it is. Plan ahead. So plan ahead. Read the directions. Follow them. I can't stress that enough. Okay, spiking devices. The standard requires spiking at a rate of 3% with a minimum of 3 spikes a year and 6 per month. So plan your spiking based on the total number of measurements you're making over a given period of time. Don't base it on, well, I need, and I get this, I used to get this a lot for people that were measuring in schools. They'll say, well, I need one spike for this school, I need 2 spikes for that school, or whatever. I'm going, how many devices are you going to use? How many measurements are you going to use in the next month? How many are you going to use in the next quarter? Take 3% of that. Don't base it on one school or the one building or another. So again, this doesn't necessarily waste money, but it wastes your time, wastes our time. Just plan on 3% of your whole program. If you're only going to use 100 in a whole year, just do 3 spikes. If you're going to use 100, in 15 different buildings over the next quarter, do 3 spikes during that quarter. But don't base it on, 1 spike for this test and 1 spike for that building, et cetera, et cetera. So, also we get requests, well, I want to just spike 1 device. Well, spiking 1 at a time is the most expensive way of doing spikes, and it doesn't provide an estimate of the precision of the measurement if you only have 1. So I recommend never spike less than 3, and in fact, the Kansas Chamber insists that you do at least 3 at a time. So my advice always is spike 3, at least 3 at a time, then you've satisfied the year, or at least you have a measurement of the precision. Oh, and also make sure the spike devices are all from the same lot. Don't spike 1 out of this lot and 2 out of that lot. Make sure that if you get a new lot of devices, make sure you spike from those lots, from each lot. Okay, and the mistake that is made too often is the client sends the spike devices to the analysis laboratory, like charcoal, like Sean was talking about, and then they send in field devices at the same time, and they put the dates and times of the field devices that were exposed in the field. They put those same dates and times on the spikes. Well, realize that the laboratory has to know exactly when they were exposed. So if you give them the wrong dates and times, if you don't give them the same dates and times that were reported by the chamber value, they have no way of giving you the right answer. So they'll get their result back from the laboratory, and they'll say, well, that doesn't match what you said it was supposed to be. Well, what dates and times did you give the laboratory? Again, waste time. Then the laboratories, they call the laboratory and they say, oh, well, I really should have put these dates and times on it, so the laboratory has to do the recalculation, and so forth and so on. How am I doing on time? Am I getting tight here? Yes? No? Okay. Long-term devices. Please realize that long-term devices don't measure radon concentration. They measure integrated concentration in units like picocurie days per liter or becquerel hours per meter cubed. And so when the laboratory analyzes them, they have to divide by the time that the device was actually exposed to get a value in concentration units. So we often get a request for, I want you to expose my alpha track devices at 4 picocuries per liter for 91 days. Well, please realize there's no chamber that's going to do that. No chamber is going to run 4 picocuries per liter for 91 days. And they don't need to, because these are integrating devices. They're typically exposed from 2 to 4 weeks, maybe longer, but certainly not at the same concentration for 91 days. So if you need an equivalent, what the client really wants, whether they realize it or not, is the equivalent of 4 picocuries per liter for 91 days. And so if you multiply that, what they really want is 364 picocurie days per liter, integrated concentration. And so in the chamber, they might actually be exposed at something like 20 picocuries per liter for 18 days, which gets you 360 picocurie days per liter, which is pretty close to 364. And then if the analysis laboratory is told they were actually exposed for 91 days, yeah, right. So the laboratory would come back and say, well, the concentration over 91 days was 4 picocuries per liter, but the chamber said there was at 20. So then we get a phone call. Why does it say 4 picocuries per liter when you said 20? And they said, well, how much time did you say to the laboratory that they were exposed? Well, 91 days. Well, they weren't. They were exposed for 18 days. The other thing about long-term devices, don't expect them to be that accurate when you expose them for extremely short periods of time. Follow the manufacturer's instructions. Sometimes we don't even know how long it takes for radon to equilibrate inside the device. That's part of the problem of making sure that it's exposed long enough. And that's why at chambers we don't like to expose them less than, say, 2 to 4 weeks. They're also follow the manufacturer's instructions about whether they should be sealed at the end of the exposure or just left open. Because sometimes the radon has to then escape from the device. If you seal it up, then it can't escape, and then it continues to expose. So my final words: follow the directions, read the directions, follow the directions, talk to someone at the chamber. In Kansas, I know they force you to talk to someone at the chamber. In our lab, we send you a work agreement, and if the work agreement says you ask for a let's say a performance test on a monitor, and you get it back, and then you're calling us and you're saying, well, where's my calibration certificate? Is it, well, you didn't ask for a calibration, and the work agreement didn't say anything about calibration. Oh, well, I assumed that you would do a calibration too. Well, don't assume anything, people. Make sure you talk to somebody. Make sure you understand. And if you don't understand, talk to someone and ask questions. Don't assume anything. Pretty sure isn't good enough. You know that commercial? Well, I think, pretty sure those hornets aren't deadly. But if you're unsure, talk to someone. And thank you for your attention.